Welcome to another episode of On This Day. I'm your host for On This Day, Mike Goodpastor. Today we're going to talk about a really, really bad day for me and my favorite team, the Cincinnati Bengals. On this day, December 27th, 1991, the Cincinnati Bengals hire the youngest head coach in NFL history, Dave Shula. I'm your host, Mike Goodpastor, and today we are going to look at a dark day for the Cincinnati Bengals. Actually, since August of 1991, when legendary founder and owner and head coach, general manager Paul Brown passed away, pretty much all days have been dark as a Bengals fan. And December 24th, 1991, Christmas Eve, Sam Weiss was quite suddenly no longer the head coach of the Bengals. 4 days later, his receivers coach for 1 year, 32-year-old Dave Shula, was being introduced as his replacement. Now, Shula recalled, I don't know if it was more than one discussion that I remember between him and Mike Brown. It didn't seem like it took very long that he gave me the opportunity. And we came to an agreement on a 3-year deal. So that's how it all came together. Now, of course, the Brown family is big on loyalty, and Paul Brown and Don Shula were very tight. So I think this was a no-brainer. The Philadelphia Eagles had actually entertained the idea a few years before this of hiring Dave Shula, who was completely unqualified to do the job. But the Bengals jumped on it and got him. And, you know, that's how it works out when you're a Bengals fan. Now, Shula said, I didn't come to the Bengals with the idea that I'd be the head coach. I was looking forward to working under Sam Weiss and his offensive wizardry. And he had a lot of success in the 80s, and I was hoping to be part of that for a long time, but it didn't turn out that way. At the time, considered the youngest head coach in NFL's modern era, he was considered that at the time. Subsequent research discovered a couple others had beaten him by a few months. Shula's hire caught many off guard. Weiss remembers he was an outstanding coach. Then Mike hired him, which was a surprise to me, that he would hire a young coach that really wasn't quite ready to be a head coach. I don't know. I don't know why Mike did that. That was his choice. I was gone. Now, veteran safety David Fulcher says, I think we were in a transition, not only just to coaching, but players too. That free agent money, Plan B free agency, and guys were taking the money and going to other places. They got him in here as a young coach, and everybody's like, wow, he's going to be our coach? I hope he's as good as his dad. The 1992 NFL Draft was Shula's first as head coach, and when the club suddenly pivoted off taking quarterback Troy Vincent and instead selecting Houston quarterback David Klingler number 6, you knew you had the eventual replacement for Boomer Esiason. Shula's first regular season game would fall on September 6, 1992 in Seattle, and when the team filed off the bus, about a dozen players were served subpoenas in what would become the Victoria C sexual assault case. Now, under that cloud is how his head coaching career started. And while the Bengals dominated the Seahawks 21-3 and went on to win over the Raiders the next week to move 2-0, those shadows never quite left. The turn for the worse on the field occurred in Week 3 when the Cincinnati Bengals blew a 17-3 lead in Green Bay after they knocked out starting quarterback Don the Magic Man Majkowski, and backup Brett Favre came in to throw 3 fourth-quarter touchdowns in a Packer victory. And Boomer Esiason recalled, we were running the stupid cover 2 crap, becoming all agitated over and over again, still 2 decades later. Esiason says, I'll never forget that. Oh my God, we kept running cover 2, and he kept killing us, and he went right down the field in like 40 seconds to beat us. That started a string of 5 straight losses, the first of 5 different such streaks in Shula's tenure. That's one for every year. The first 4 games of that season, I'll never forget, man, Esiason said. I mean, I was calling all the plays, all the formations, all the personnel groups. I was doing it all from the field. I was literally calling the entire offense. I remember we lost a home game to Minnesota 42-7, and I was mentally shot 4 games into the season. But the club won 2 more games in 92 that year before going 5-11. But back-to-back 3-13 campaigns in 1993 and 94 followed. Despite that, Shula received, amazingly enough, a 2-year contract extension. Bruce Coslett returned to run the offense, and the club drafted Kajana Carter number 1 overall in 1995. Carter's season ended in the preseason due to a blown-out knee in his second carry against the Detroit Lions at the old Pontiac Silverdome. Despite that setback, the year would be the Bengals' best under Shula as the club went 7-9, and new quarterback Jeff Blake and wide receiver Carl Pickens went on to the Pro Bowl. They were still trying to recover from the David Klingler fiasco, Coslett said. I wasn't here for that, thank God, but we went through a lineup of quarterbacks that were less than NFL quality. Let's put it that way. Until I recommended that I had this kid in New York as a backup, Jeff Blake. So we got him, and he was our quarterback for 2, 3, or 4 years. He was serviceable, but I mean, he wasn't going to take you to the promised land. He was a good player, but not a Super Bowl caliber player. Let's put it that way. Now, I want to stop this here because Jeff Blake, I think, was one of the best deep ball throwers in NFL history. And the Bengals tried to turn him into something he wasn't, specifically Bruce Coslett. So when Bruce Coslett wants to say that somebody was serviceable, but they're not going to take you all the way, the exact same thing could be said about Bruce Coslett. At best, he was a serviceable coach, and he was never going to take you all the way. And he proved that with his debacle in New York with the Jets as the head coach, and then again with his debacle as the Cincinnati Bengals coach after Dave Shula. So really, Bruce Coslett, I wouldn't read a whole lot into what that moron says. 1996 saw a 1-6 start for Dave Shula, but his undoing was he was fired after the team blew a 21-7 halftime lead in San Francisco. Now, the team did rally under Coslett in the interim, finishing the season 7-2. And, you think, what changed? Shula laughed. So it's hard not to think that you were a major cause of the problem, right? But as the years passed and the club continued to struggle, he realized perhaps the problems were greater than him. Over a 5-year period, they didn't really show much growth, if any, he said. I don't think they made the playoffs in any of the 5 years after me. I'm not sure if they ever got over 500. So it kind of evened out over a period of time when I didn't feel quite as bad. So yeah, now, with 20 years perspective looking back on it, you realize that maybe it wasn't all me. Certainly I had a role in it, but you can't blame everything on me. Shula noted the litany of failed draft picks, from Klingler to John Copeland to Big Daddy Dan Wilkinson. We made some decisions on players that didn't quite work out, Shula said. And then we didn't get a coaching staff. We didn't get the guys that we had to perform as well as they could. And that adds up to losing games and losing close games. His firing ended a 5-year-plus run at 19-52. Shula holds some dubious distinctions, including the coach who reached 50 losses, the fastest. It was the 3rd worst winning percentage in NFL history. Recently, Gus Bradley had surpassed that in Jacksonville with a .226 winning percentage. Only Burt Bell, who was 10-46, had a worse record. Well, Bell and, of course, Gus Bradley. Now, I don't think we can blame Dave Shula for this. And, you kind of blame the players. You blame the assistant coaches. But overall, this is the fault of one man, Mike Brown, who, since 1991, has done nothing but destroy the Cincinnati Bengals franchise. I think most of these draft picks that were failed were of Mike Brown's choosing. And I don't think that, as of right now, the way the Bengals are run, that any more than an occasional playoff appearance is really more possible. Mike Brown is the reason the Cincinnati Bengals have been ultimately nothing but colossal failures since his father died in 1990. So, on this day, in 1991, the Cincinnati Bengals hired Dave Shula. It wasn't his fault. He was in over his head. He never should have been hired, and he should have been fired much quicker. But this, as most everything else in Cincinnati, falls on the head of one man, Mike Brown, who is a moron. You've been listening to On This Day on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Make sure you listen every day. You can hear us on every podcasting platform, including iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find the Grueling Truth. So, for myself, Mike Goodpaster, you've been listening to the Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.